Hey there, you are listening to the Moxie podcast, and I'm your host, Jenny Nuccio, global social entrepreneur who loves to do a lot of good in this world, and best known for being the founder and CEO of Imani Collective. This show started with the simple idea of shining light on ordinary people doing courageous things in this world, and over the years has grown to be a hub of not only courageous conversations, but resources, knowledge, and connection. From topics of sustainability to leadership to, of course, a good dose of social entrepreneurship. If you're looking to grow in your knowledge, develop as a leader, and create a ripple effect of impact in this world, then welcome, Changemaker. It is time to ignite your Moxie. Welcome to the Moxie podcast. I am thrilled because this month we are going to be talking about leadership. And if you have been around in the Moxie podcast for long enough, or you know me personally, I love leadership. My academic background is leadership development. That is actually what my doctorate is focused and foundationally in, is leadership development and communications. And I love it all. I love developing leaders and see them thrive and see them become exactly who they are supposed to be. I also am a Gallup Strengths Finder coach, so I love identifying your strengths and you living to your truth. So let me tell you how this month is going to go, because we could go a lot of different ways. We could go deep into theory, and I could tell you a lot about leadership theories and kind of pull out that nerdy academic side of me. Or we can go broad and just tell you how to be the best effective leader in the culture that you live and you work in. But I thought, what better yet but to take a book and pull some principles from it from a good friend of mine who has written an amazing book on leadership. There's, of course, a lot out there, but this is such a great playbook for you as a leader in any context that you might be in. And so we are going to go over a little bit high level. We're going to talk about Ripple. And Ripple was written by Chris Hutchinson. And at the end of this series, we'll have an interview with Chris and kind of talk more about his passion about leadership, why he decided to write this book. But it says, Ripple, a field manual for leadership that works. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you're going to see me like pulling great nuggets straight from the book. If you're listening to me just audio in the audio waves, then you won't see my little cheat sheet that I have in front of me, aka Ripple, the book. All the good nuggets are being pulled from his book, so I want to make sure he gets credit for that because all of these principles are his. We're not going to go over the 6 principles that he highlights in this book, but this month we'll have 2 podcasts coming out specifically dedicated to Ripple, and we're going to go over 2 of the principles that I find really, really important as leaders. All right. So the first principle that he goes over, it's called leaders' effectiveness is proportional to how well they know themselves. This really aligns with your values. If you're not new in this space, I talk a lot about understanding your core values. So when he's talking about how proportionally well you know yourself, he's talking about that. He's talking about understanding your core, understanding your boundaries, understanding your priorities, understanding who you are. The better you understand your moral and central compass, the better you will be able to go out and lead without confusion, but you'll be able to lead with direction. You'll be able to lead with effectiveness because you know exactly the ground you stand on. So on this principle, he has some subcategories of how we can effectively move and walk into this principle, right? So I'm going to read from his book those sub principles, and then we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into what each one of them means. So to get into alignment, these are the 3 things that Chris says to get into alignment with this principle. And 1, decide what matters most. So again, your personal values and understanding those are the best compass for you. 2, chart your own course. So understanding how you can picture your own personal future. And then know that you're awesome. That's the 3rd one. People often don't recognize their own strengths, but to know that they are awesome. And when you understand what matters most to you, what you value the most, you understand who you are in the core, you understand your strengths and how awesome you are, this is going to be able to lead a ripple into many, many communities. So let's start with decide what matters most. Practically speaking, I want you to be able to sit and reflect today. If you have time today or this week or whenever you're listening to this, I want you to be able to find some time and to sit, and I want you to do this exercise. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, I was at a retreat and I did this exercise. And what's so funny is just this week, I picked up this journal and I started reading through these quotes. It really helped me reflect on just how far I've gotten in this year, because it's been one heck of a year. And so I wanted to remind myself of like, oh, wow, look how far we've gone. Look at what we had planned last year. And as I was reading through the journal, I remembered this practice that we did. And there was a chart, there was a grid. And on this grid, it had love. So one of my columns was love. One of my columns was meh. And one of my columns was hate. So if you can picture what I put in these columns, it basically was an activity and an exercise to identify what I loved to do in my work, what I loved to do and pursue, what I kind of liked, but it wasn't like, didn't really light me up like what it was to love. And then what I absolutely hate. And hate is a strong word. I actually don't really like using that word often. So what I dislike, what is something that just really puts my soul, kind of distinguishes it, right? And so I was reading through this journal, and it's quite funny because most of the stuff that I hate or highly dislike is everything that I did this year. It had to do with projections and performas and business plans and pitches and raising money. Believe it or not, that's not my favorite thing to do. And I highly dislike doing it. It doesn't light my soul on fire. It takes a lot of energy, and kind of it just sucks my energy. And there's stuff that takes a lot of energy, but gives me energy. And these practices and these things just really suck that out of me. The things that I love were being creative, were sharing stories, was my mentorship programs, I even put dancing and creativity and innovation, things that I love to do. And my meh column was kind of like building online courses. Believe it or not, guys, it's not my favorite thing to do. I know you guys love it. Not my favorite, but it doesn't distinguish my soul. And then sales meetings and other things that I know are good for our business, but again, not really lighting me up on fire. So what I want you to do is I want you to do that practice. What matters most to you? And I want you to sit down and look at all the activities that you're doing in your life, in your business, and put them in those 3 categories. What do you love? What is kind of okay? And what do you really, really dislike? And then from there, you will know what gives you the most energy or what feels the most easeful. Because the more that we push into something that has a lot of effort, and takes a lot of effort, the closer we're going to get to burnout faster. And so we want to make sure we're aligning ourselves with activities that we absolutely love to do. Now, as anything, as having a job or a business owner or wherever you are in life, there are things that we are going to have to do that we don't necessarily like to do, that we have to push through. But what are steps we can take towards doing things that we love every day? What are steps we can take towards to creating a life that we really, really align with and are based on our values? So decide what matters most. This quote that Chris puts in here, he says, the value we receive is a byproduct of the value we help create, meaning the energy that you put out into the world, right? What you see as priority, what you see that matters the most, what you shine outwardly into the world, that is what's going to come back towards you. So understand that the more you are aligned with who you are, the more that is going to come towards you and gravitate towards you. When you look at people who really are confident and really have like a good set of friends, or maybe they're just constantly on fire, it's because they have found an alignment inside of themselves where they understand their values. So along with understanding your priorities and where you put your time, I encourage you to figure out what are your top 10 values. This is something that I reassess every year. And what are the top 5 core values that represent who I am and what I'm walking through in the year. And sometimes my top 5 shift because my priorities shift for the season my kids are in, for the season I am in business. So make sure you sit down and you do that value practice. If you go into jennynuccio.com, we even have a core values assessment that you can take. I think you can also access it on my Instagram as well. I think we have it there as a free resource. So please go check it out. And it's a booklet for you to be able to learn how to explore your values. The second practice that he says is creating your own course, right? So when we're creating our own course, we are setting vision and we're having clarity of where we're stepping into. And the clarity of that end goal of where we're going is the clarity of our actions today. So a lot of times when we wake up in the morning and we feel a little helpless, it most likely is because maybe we don't have a goal in mind, or maybe we don't exactly, there's so many unknowns that we don't exactly know where we're heading towards. I don't know if you've ever been on a team where you feel like you just kind of are aimlessly walking throughout the day in your tasks because you aren't being led well. I am guilty for not leading my team well, or not setting a vision clear enough for my team, where they don't necessarily know the actions that they need to be stepping into. And that can be really frustrating. So whether you're leading a team or you're just leading your life, by having clarity in your vision and where you're stepping towards, you're going to have clear goals and actions of today. And so that's going to help chart your own course. And the last thing is discerning your purpose. So we need to figure out what lights us up. There are things in this world that really get us excited. And this goes back to, what matters most. But when we're discerning our purpose, we're figuring out, okay, what are we truly walking towards? What is the legacy that we want to leave on this earth? And we need to make sure that we're doing that in a way that truly leaves an imprint that we want out there, that truly, when people think of our name or they think of what we do, represents the characteristics of who we are. And when we do all of this, we're going to become the leader that we want to be. We're going to become the leader that people want to follow, and that proportionally represents who we are. So I'm going to remind you again of the first principle we are talking about, and that is the leader's effectiveness is proportionally to how well they know themselves. So the leader is most effective to how well they know themselves. And in order to know yourself, you need to know your values, you need to know the direction you're heading, and you need to have clarity on your purpose. People are going to gravitate towards that over and over again, because you just know what you stand for and where you're moving and where you're going. And those conversations are going to be easeful. Those conversations are going to be light. And they're going to just seem, they're overall going to seem like less effort. I can think back to really in my early 20s, even when I first came to Kenya, I feel like I knew exactly where I was heading and where I was going and where I needed to be. But I still had this sense of a little bit of loss of clarity and direction. I felt really misunderstood. I didn't at that time know that that's exactly where I needed to be. That's exactly the motto I was going to create for Amani. That's exactly the right direction I was heading. But I was trying to fit so much into a box that everyone understood that I felt like I was hitting a wall and having to put so much effort in life. And it was exhausting. And when we finally figure out, okay, this is who I am. These are the values that I want to represent. These are the people that I want to spend the most time with. This is the purpose that I want to stand for. Then your effectiveness to other people around you as a leader is going to become so easy because you're standing confidently in who you are. So first and foremost, this week, this is kind of going to be an action step podcast because I want you guys to create some actions, is sit down and create that chart of what do you love to do? And what do you kind of like to do? And what do you absolutely do not enjoy, right? Create that list. The second thing is figure out your core values. If you don't know already, I want you to at least know your top 5 core values. And the third thing is to sit out and kind of create a vision plan. Now, it doesn't have to be this grandeur vision if you're not a visionary and you're like, well, Jenny, what are you talking about? I cannot create a vision. But you can start with understanding what do you want to achieve, and maybe also what do you want to avoid, and then what do you want to preserve. There are things right now in your life that you want to take out, right? And so maybe you want to avoid that for the future. What are the rhythms that you want to preserve? And what are things that you want to add into your life? And when you can create those different buckets, it's really going to allow you to step towards the clarity of who you want to become and the vision for the future. All right, so we're going to start that way. I am so excited for you guys to keep stepping into your ripple. If you don't have this book, I should tell Chris, he should give me some commission for this. If you don't have this book, please check it out. Ripple by Chris Hutchinson. I actually use this in my leadership class now at the university I teach at, because I think it's a really powerful tool of understanding who you are, and just a simple playbook. What I also like about this book is you can write in it. So it gives you columns where you can write, you can highlight, you can make notes. And so he created it to be interactive. He even told me he was like really upset about the hardcover because he wanted it to be like a field guide, right? Where you took on the field and you took notes and you learned as you grew. And so that is my encouragement for you. If you can, go grab the book. But if anything, I want you to sit down this week, in the next couple weeks, and really get ready as we move into 2024. This is the perfect time to sit down and reflect. Look at what 2023 brought you. Look at where you're going. And if you're listening to this podcast several years later, same thing. It doesn't matter where you are at the end of the year or into the next. It's always a great practice to figure out how you can be an effective leader for today and tomorrow. So, as always, thank you for being a part of this community, and Moxie on. I love that you were able to join me today, and I'm grateful for the community at the Moxie podcast that continues to grow. To make this show even better, I would love if you could take some time to leave a review, take a screenshot of this episode, share it on your stories, and don't forget to tag the Moxie podcast. I would love to find a way to connect with you. Until next week, friends, Moxie on.